How's it going, guys? Welcome back to AZ Trading. Hope you're doing well. It's the 12th of August on the Friday, and in this video I'll be showing you how we managed to capture this bullish move on the NASDAQ as well as this large bullish move on the Dow. You guys already know I'm not just all talk. Here are the executions. I'll just turn them on now. You can see those executions on the NASDAQ as well as the ones on the Dow, and they're the labels as well. Now with the proof out of the way, let's get into how we managed to find this trade and the pattern we can use to find great trades like this one in the future. So we're on the NASDAQ and I'm going to zoom into a 1 minute chart. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that the pattern that we use to trade is the RMR pattern. So first we look for a raid. So below these equal lows, when price reach that area, we can call that the raid. Immediately afterwards, once it breaks this previous swing high, we can call this the market structure shift, which is the second part, and the final part is the return, which in most cases we can use a gap, which is formed during the shift, and once price retraces into that gap, you can place a long. Once you've placed that long, you can't forget about your stop, which is at the bottom of the raid, and then objectives we can look for above. As you can see, this was not the entry that I took, since I just missed that opportunity. So once I missed that entry, I was just looking for another. And luckily for me, another RMR formed. So once again, we look for a raid. So below this swing low, there's sell side liquidity. So as price stabbed through there, we call that the raid. The second thing we look for, market structure shift. So above this swing high, we call that the shift. And once again, we look for a return area. So in this case, another gap has been formed. If we extend that out, we can see that price managed to retrace into that gap where we managed to place our long position right there. During this market structure shift, it did take a good 30 minutes or so for it to reach our return area. So that in itself is a good exercise to practice patience and waiting for your setup to form. So for example, if price didn't return there and continued to pump, then my setup wouldn't form and I wouldn't be able to participate with this method. So once I place my entry, I put my stop at the previous swing low, which is this one down there, and then we look for objectives above. Now you might be wondering, where does the Dow trade come into place? Well, as you can see, at the exact moment we placed that trade at 10:40 on the Dow, at 10:41 we placed a long position as well. And you might be asking yourself, why would I place a long on the Dow when I've already got one on the NASDAQ? I've now zoomed out to a 5-minute chart on the Dow, and you can see that there are very clean relative equal highs as an objective, which was the main reason why I wanted to long the Dow as well. Whereas on the NASDAQ, you can see that those highs were taken much earlier. So for our bullish trade on the Dow, when looking for partials, the things I look for are areas of liquidity and gaps. So if you have a look where our first partial was, it may look like I took it at the top of the candle, but no, it's down over here, which if you look to the left, this is where the end of the gap is. So once that gap was fully closed, I took my first partial. I set a limit order for my partial. I have no idea why it was not triggered here. I believe the spread didn't tag my order. The second partial that I took, you already know, I outlined it just before, which are these equal highs over here. I've just zoomed out into a 5-minute time frame on the Dow. Here's my third partial and there's my fourth. If you look to the left, you can see what I was aiming for. So for my third partial, there's this gap over here. Once that was completely filled, I took off my third partial. And my final partial, of course, is this swing high. Extend that out. Once it reached it, that's our final partial. And just like that, this trade managed to capture over 250 points. And depending on your contract size, you can do the math on how much profit you'd make. Okay, so we're back on the NASDAQ just to show you where I took my partials. So my first partial, if you look to the left, once this gap over here was completely filled, we took the first partial. For our second partial, you can look to the left and there's another gap over here. Once we reach that gap, I took off my second one. And my final partial, this one's a little bit different. If you have a look at the time the execution was made, it was at 3 p.m. And generally, not all the time, but 3 p.m. on a Friday leaves 1 more hour of trading left. And in my experience, I've noticed this final hour of trading generally be very low volatility, as well as be capped within the day's range. Of course, today, price just decides to pump up, but just because we missed out on a little bit of a move does not mean we're unhappy with the move that we managed to capture. So overall, this is the NASDAQ trade that we took, and this is the trade on the Dow. If you made any nice trades this week, keep it up, guys. But that's all from me. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button. It makes me very happy. Any questions or video suggestions, leave them in the comments. I saw your comments in my previous video, and I'll definitely get back to you guys. But other than that, Hope you all have a great weekend, and as always, take care guys. Peace.